And welcome to the April 2026 Council Agenda Briefing. We acknowledge and pay our respects to the traditional custodians of this land, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and their elders past and present. I'd like to advise everyone that the audio and video of this meeting is being live streamed to YouTube. I request everyone to turn off their mobile phones. I remind you that audio recording of the meeting proceedings and photography within the chamber is prohibited unless prior approval has been granted, and councillors and city officers are reminded to disclose any declarations of financial interests and interests affecting impartiality, and are requested to activate their microphones when addressing the meeting. So that brings us to item 1, which is the declaration of opening. I declare this meeting open at 1 minute past 6 p.m. Items for council. Agenda items 2, 3, 6, 7, 8.1, 8.2, 9, 11, 13 and 14 will be dealt with at the ordinary council meeting to be held 28 April 2026. That brings us to item 4, which is attendance. Item 4.1 is apologies. I've received an apology from Councillor Hayley Prendeville. And item 4.2 is approved leaves of absence, of which there are nil for this evening. Item 5 is declarations of interest. Mayor Greg Milner, that's me. I've declared an impartiality interest in item 10.3.1, as I know a number of the members of the Royal Perth Golf Club. Councillor Stephen Russell has declared a financial proximity and impartiality interest in item 10.3.1, as my property is on the Heritage Survey. Adjacent properties to my property are on the Heritage Survey. I know of persons whose properties are on the Heritage Survey. Councillor Kathy Lees has declared an impartiality interest in item 10.3.1, as prior to my election, as a ratepayer, I made a request to the city that 49 Forest Street, South Perth, which is proposed to be included on the draft amended local heritage survey for advertising. I also have friends who are members of the Royal Perth Golf Club, which is also proposed to be included. As a consequence, there may be a perception that my impartiality on the matter may be affected. However, I declare that I will consider the matter on its merits and vote accordingly. Councillor Kathy Lees has also declared an impartiality interest in item 10.3.6, as I am a co-founder of the South Perth Tree Canopy Advocates and a co-founder and committee member of the WA Tree Canopy Advocates, and I note the application involves removal of regulated trees. While there may be a perception that my impartiality on the matter may be affected, I declare that I will consider this matter on its merits and vote accordingly. And Councillor Bronwyn Waugh has declared an impartiality interest in item 10.3.1, as my son attends Wesley College. I am also involved in a volunteer capacity with Raise Me Up Incorporated, which took over from the Home Karawara Food Relief Program, a program previously supported by the City of South Perth. Raise Me Up Incorporated received a donation on 13 March 2026 from a charity golf day associated with the Royal Perth Golf Club. These associations may give rise to a perceived impact on my impartiality. Councillors, does anyone else have any interest that they wish to disclose this evening? Councillor Howling.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. In respect of item 10.3.1, I know some people whose names are included within the heritage list. Secondly, in respect of the Royal Perth Golf Club, some friends of mine play golf. Thirdly, in respect of the Royal Perth Golf Club, a separate arm, the Charity Golf Day Association or charity, has funded the Raise Me Up Incorporated, of which I was a member up until December, and made a donation to it. The St Columba's Church, I attended a baptism once there about 2 years ago. And in respect of the Wesley College, Ross Barron is a person I know, and spoke to him about the inclusion of some of the buildings, as I indicated previously, that are to be included on the heritage list.
Thank you, Councillor Howling. Councillors, any other declarations? Councillor Raison.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. In relation to item 10.3.1, I'll make the identical declaration that I made in respect of Wesley College the last time, which relates to the fact that I had a child at the school. I've also had people approach me from the school about the matter, but I will consider the matter impartially. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Raison. Councillors, any further declarations of interest to be made this evening? No. Okay. In that case, we move on to item 8, which is presentations. Item 8.3 is deputations. And this evening we have 2 speakers who will each have up to 10 minutes to address council. And I kindly ask that while everyone's insights and perspectives are valuable, please do keep the comments concise, to the point, and respectful towards elected members and city officers as per previous meetings. I'd like to begin by inviting Mr Scott Carmichael of South Perth, who is speaking against the officer recommendation at item 10.3.1. Welcome to you, Mr Carmichael. I note that you spoke on a deputation last month regarding the local heritage survey. So we obviously received those comments. So any comments tonight, please make sure that it's new information that's not already been presented last month.
Okay, I've actually brought some pictures. I'd like to show you some pictures. I think it's important to have a look at what we're talking about.
All right. Governance, are we able to accommodate that? Had you mentioned that to the governance department previously?
Sorry.
It's all right, we'll do what we can.
Okay. It's in a folder here, 49 Forest Street. Yep.
All right, make yourself comfortable. We'll just see if we can get that up on the screen for you. Actually, I might get you to just go back behind the desk there, Mr Carmichael. They'll come to you if they need assistance.
So yes, as you know, I'm the owner of 49 Forest Street. We don't support the Category 2 listing. We support a Category 3 listing. The reasons given, there was the Heritage Survey gave very vague reasons why this property is very important to the heritage of South Perth. So there's a high degree of aesthetic value demonstrated by the dwelling. So there's a picture of my house, which is 49 Forest Street, on the picture. Yeah, so can you see that, guys? I love my house, but it's nothing special compared to other houses in South Perth. It's not aesthetically wow, you know, like it's an older house, but we love it, but I think it's not something that you would pick out amongst other houses. Another reason was the place had, the house had historical association with the expansion of South Perth area and the period of growth in the interwar years. Now this is true for a lot of houses. It's not unique to this house. A lot of houses has the same thing in South Perth. Another reason was the place represents the life of post-depression years where the predominantly wealthy Anglo-Saxon homeowners sought to display their respectability. Again, nothing new with this house. Many houses in the area had this. The third reason given by the report was the place was associated with the architects Hobbs, Forbes and Partners. So we acknowledge that the buildings that Joseph Hobbs designed in Perth, but there's no real evidence that he was involved with the design of this house. His company did the work, but there's no evidence. His names are not on the plans. I think the owner, the original builder, was friends with Hobbs, but the association is small at least. So the fourth reason given was the association with Major Corbett, who was a master of the Perth Mint, and he was also a major in the army. So while we've got great respect for the diggers of the country in the war, we don't believe the chief exec of the Perth Mint is anything historical. An example is this is, no one can tell me who the exec is of the Perth Mint at the moment. Who is the current executive of the Perth Mint? It's not a historical placement. Okay, so the Heritage Consultant provided a Category 2 assessment based on mention a few special things within the house. So if you could bring up the picture of the fireplace in bedroom 1, please. It's on the pictures. So this is the first example of the heritage that they think is important to South Perth, this fireplace. And the second one is the fireplace in the drawing room. Next one. So as you can see, it's not too pretty. Is this something that we really think is important to the heritage of South Perth? No. Look, it's quite obvious that a lot of things in the house are not original or in dilapidated state. So if we could please go through pictures of the house, the kitchen. Nothing original, all been redone. Bedrooms. Pictures of the bedrooms, please. All redone. Nothing original except for floors. And in fact, the floors are click-clack flooring. The Jarrah floors have been replaced as well. So no original. The walls are not original. The ceilings aren't original. So also the report mentioned the Jarrah floors and skirting boards, which again are as common as mud, to be frank, throughout South Perth and through Western Australia. That's not a heritage, anything that would make it special. We don't believe this should be a Category 2 status because it lacks significance, as previously explained. Alterations have on the inside are very much different to original. The Category 2 would also put it into the heritage list, which would restrict our property rights. We require a DA for any changes or updates, and we'd probably, like, to be honest, who would be doing the conditions for the DA? Probably be the same consultant who thought that fireplace had high heritage value. So God knows what kind of conditions we'll have on a DA and the costs involved with that DA as well. Who knows what they're going to be? I don't think it's fair. It's a private place. It's not a public place. There's not going to be people in my house viewing it. Category 2 listings should be kept for public buildings where people can see them. It's not correct to do houses like this, which are private residents. Please support a Category 3 listing, not a Category 2 listing for this house. Thank you.
Thank you for your deputation, Mr Carmichael. I'll just get you to wait for a moment. Would you like to take questions from councillors?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Please do, please.
Councillors, would anyone? Councillor Raison.
Thank you, Mr Carmichael, for your deputation, and you won the last time. This was on my mind the first time you spoke. When you bought the house, which I understand was fairly recent,
Christmas.
were you provided with welcome to the area? I understand that you come from interstate. I'm not sure about that.
I did, thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah.
This councillor welcoming. Thank you.
When you bought the house, were you provided with any information about the history and the heritage, potential heritage status?
No. I mean, I was aware it was an older house and there was heritage to it, and we researched it, but yeah, but not that it was going to be listed as a heritage house, no.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Mr Carmichael, councillors? Councillor Howling.
If I may, thank you for your deputation, Mr Carmichael. You fairly firmly pressed the point that there was no connection to Hobbs. How did
Limited connection to
Sorry?
Hobbs. Limited connection.
Yes, apart from potentially the owner being a friend. What research did you undertake and how did you come to the view that you've expressed?
Okay, so I've got the plans, the original plans for the house, and his name is not on it. Hobbs's name is not, it's not signed by Hobbs. But also, he was obviously a very famous architect of the time, and he was doing, as you know, the Windsor Hotel and buildings. I think this building, because the company was established in 2005, this is quite a few years after, this is 30 years after. So it was, I don't think it's likely his company was involved, he was personally was involved with such a small project when he was taking on much bigger projects in Perth.
Any further questions for Mr Carmichael? Councillor Lees.
Thank you for your deputation, Mr Carmichael. You noted that there'd been a number of alterations inside. What about the exterior of the building?
No, that's original. The original is definitely original exterior, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Which we don't plan to change in any way. Yeah.
Any further questions, councillors? No. Thank you very much for your deputation, Mr Carmichael. I'd now like to invite Ms Joanne Ord of Como, who is speaking on the officer recommendation at item 10.5.1 and 10.5.2. Welcome to you, Ms Ord.
Hello, everybody. This is quite short, just a few comments on some of the risk items. So the integrity self-assessment presented with the framework update apparently provided an overview of the state of integrity across the city as at December 25. And the state government website states that the integrity self-assessment tool should be used to assess integrity across the whole authority, across all functional areas. Individuals who can comment on each element should be identified, evidence should be gathered to support the integrity characteristics in place, and documenting the evidence to support the assessment explains the reasons for choosing a maturity level, which in turn provides rigour to the assessment process, and that's all on the website. So it was not clear in the officer report when the integrity assessment was conducted, sometime in December, presumably, as a retrospective or backdated assessment would not favour process. At the December agenda briefing, one of the authors of the Integrity Framework report responded to a notice of motion with the following. Given the current change in the executive, it is appropriate that the Director of Corporate Services and the Chief Executive Officer be given time to comprehend the business. And this was in relation to the city's operational risks. So perhaps that same approach might have been appropriate when assessing integrity across all functional areas to best support process and outcome. In any event, I assume the officer report and attachments would provide some evidence and traceability on the assessment process to support the maturity level selected, and in turn this would demonstrate an understanding of integrity across all functional areas of the city. But I couldn't locate any evidence. I also compared the city's 2020 Integrity Framework document to the update proposed, and the documents do share some important statements, just a few of them. Ethical leadership means using transparency and accountability in decision making to make decisions that are fair, unbiased and able to withstand public scrutiny. Operating with integrity means acting with honesty and transparency and making reasoned decisions without bias by following fair and objective processes. It involves earning and maintaining community trust. There was one sentence I noted about integrity that hadn't been carried across though, and it reads, it involves ethical leadership, active management and supervision, the right people, effective processes and confident professional reporting. And a function of the Audit and Risk Committee is to receive and review reports, and the meeting minutes did state that the Integrity Framework had been noted and this appears appropriate based on the information provided. And then following that meeting, of course, we were treated to the series of media articles in Perth Now and the West, and the integrity assessment was very lucky, it got its own piece, whilst other articles focused somewhat repetitively on assertions of poor morale and endless governance issues. And yes, poor staff morale can be a risk management concern for any business. The city is no exception. It can lead to increased staff turnover, impacting the city's ability to function optimally. But there were no references to poor staff morale in the Risk Management Quarterly Report. Nothing under strategic and ops risk, nor business continuity. The section on work health and safety had only one reference to staff wellbeing, and that was the development of a menopause-friendly guidelines document. Nothing about morale or psychosocial concerns. And the city's risk event outcome from sustained and coordinated representation against the city or sustained adverse comment in the media is reputational damage. And a risk theme discussed at the February Strategic Risk Workshop was misinformation and trust erosion. Community members, including myself, have had many conversations with city officers on a range of topics over a number of years. And staff morale has come up on occasion. Morale between staff has apparently been quite good in recent years, becoming increasingly positive. And staff surveys have also been mentioned to me. And I don't doubt the veracity of the conversations I've had where staff morale has come up, with the last one being just mid-last year. False narratives and misinformation, they just do not help our city in any way. So when did any morale issues really start? And is the root cause identifiable? Perhaps the psychosocial risk assessment will provide some insight, because if staff morale has recently become a legitimate concern, then decisive action is certainly needed to ensure it improves. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you for your deputation, Ms Ord. Do you wish to take questions from councillors?
Yeah, sure.
Councillors, does anyone wish to ask questions?
No.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you for your deputation. Okay, that takes us to item 10, which is draft April reports. I now hand you over to the Acting Chief Executive Officer, Ms Anita Amprimo, to take you through the balance of the draft April reports.
Thank you. Item 10.1.1, E-quote provision for Collier Park Golf Course underground services upgrade. This report recommends Council to accept a proposal from Salta Infrastructure Pty Ltd for the provision of Collier Park Golf Course underground services upgrade.
Councillors, any questions on this item for the administration, bearing in mind that there is a confidential attachment? Councillor Russell.
Yeah, thank you. Is this this scope of work additional, or is it inclusive of the proposed or the redevelopment of the golf course?
Is that Ms Lope or Ms Amprimo?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So this sits outside the scope of the work that is being run by Club Links. This is the city is undertaking connection of the sewer because currently there is no main sewer connection to the site.
And may I ask what's forcing us to connect to the sewage reticulation?
Part of the development would require that. We have also been going through a process of connecting any of the city facilities that are not currently connected to sewer onto sewer. So we've been going through that process across a number of sites in the city as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Howley?
Thank you, and thank you, Acting Chief Executive Officer. I've got a series of questions. The report itself is a little bit limited, so I didn't have a proper appreciation from the report where the funds firstly were going to be coming from, considering that there is a reserve fund expressly set up for the purpose of the Collier Park Golf Course. Was that where the funds are intended to be utilised from?
Ms Amprema?
So there is a line item in the budget for this project that was adopted in the 25-26 budget in the Capital Works programme for it.
Yes, and I had understood that. The $19.8 million cap that was under the executed development services agreement for the Collier Park Golf Club development, does the 132,000 shortfall for the sewerage and the fire mains fall within or outside the $19.8 million cap? If it is in fact outside the $19.8 million cap, why is the city absorbing this commercial development cost via its operational fleet budget?
So this project sits outside of the development services agreement in the entirety.
Thank you. The development service agreement states and stipulates that cost overruns are to be shared proportionately unless caused by latent conditions or the city requested changes. Has Club Links agreed to contribute to this $132,000 tender shortfall, or has the city assumed 100% of the liability? And if so, under what specific contractual clause are we assuming this liability?
Yeah, the project sits outside of the development services agreement, so the conditions of the development services agreement aren't applied to this project.
Thank you. If I can ask, in respect of the WA Treasury Corporation borrowing facility that was set up for funding the capital requirements of the golf course redevelopment, in those circumstances, why isn't it the WATC loan that's able to be utilised to cover the increase in the tender costs for these essential headworks as part of the necessary upgrade to the Collier Park Golf Course as a whole?
So my understanding, and I might ask Mr. Lecoq to comment on this, but my understanding of the scope of the loan is directly related to the work covered in the development services agreement. Mr. Lecoq, do you have any comment to add to that?
No, I've got nothing to add to that. That's correct.
Thank you. In respect of the Coode Street massive shortfall, the city didn't defer the operational fleet renewals or anything else. Instead, they used $593,550 from the Community Facilities Reserve and secured a direct financial contribution from Wesley and Penrose colleges, who were jointly said to be benefiting from the sewerage line. And the manager managing the GPC shortfall, however, by cutting the fleet renewals, departs from the city's previous practice of using dedicated reserves and joint venture contributions to cover those latent sewerage costs. Why isn't Club Links being approached for the purposes of making a contribution to, or at least paying for this upgrade, considering it's their venture of the upgrade of the Collier Park Golf Course?
So the project isn't solely for the purpose of the upgrade. So it picks up public toilets on the facility that the city still has responsibility for, and also our operations and maintenance area. So this project, whilst it is aligned to the development, is a separate project from the work covered by the development services agreement.
Thank you, but it would be accepted by the city, would it not, that but for the Club Links upgrade project, which was stated to be capped out at $19.8 million, these works wouldn't require a backfill in the budget of $132,000.
The works wouldn't really change the cost of the works, because we're still connecting into the same number of existing facilities on site. So rather than connecting into the existing clubhouse, we're connecting into the new development. But the cost of the works is to connect into the Water Court Main and Jackson Road. So that's a substantial part of the cost.
Sorry, and I'm happy for this to be taken on notice, but for, so the but for test, the upgrade of the club links. That's the Collier Park Golf Course club links proposal. This would not have been a required cost, at least for the ratepayers of the city. So how is it that that is now said to be for the benefit of the ratepayers? That's essentially the question.
Is your question, sorry, is that why we're doing it at all? So would we not just leave it on septic? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, no, I understood that there was public toilets. I hadn't heard of that previously. So if I understand correctly, you probably will tell me that the public toilets has a public benefit and that the public is, those toilets are made available to and regularly able to be used by the public as opposed to only used by the Club Links golf course. So I'm trying to determine the nature of the public versus private benefit through Club Links, which I would consider to be a private benefit.
So there are some facilities on the site that the city still remains responsible for. And that is where we are responsible for those costs. So we get income from having the course controller agreement and having Club Links manage the playing field, like the playing aspect of it, but then we manage some facilities beyond the buildings that they operate from.
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Howling, do you have many more questions?
Yes, I do.
2 more, and you can submit the rest to Ms Ampremo after the meeting.
In terms of the competition policy and the requirements for the use of state government funding for competition, for the anti-competitive or the competitive requirements of those and ensuring that the funds are only used for the purposes of ensuring that there is a level playing field maintained, when the original $19.8 million was obtained and then loaned to the golf course in effect, for which they were to be paying back $8.5 million, was there an analysis done as per anti-competitive legislation and the policy to ensure that we weren't giving the golf course a competitive advantage, not in comparison with private golf courses, but other golf courses in and around the south area of Perth? And if so, when was that study presented to council? And if it hasn't been presented to council, should it be done now?
Councillor Howling, I'm sorry, but the standing orders clearly say that questions have to be short and succinct and concise. Can you please restate the question in a concise manner?
So, considering that the use of funds is to be used for the purposes of a project which has not been the subject of analysis from an anti-competitive perspective, how is it that should we now undertake such a process, considering we're in effect extending the $19.8 million by another $132,000 because we've never undertaken what's required by the policy for the grant of the finance or the anti-competitive requirements of legislation which have been amended in the last 2 years?
Yeah, I'd need to take that question on notice because it doesn't actually relate to this item on the agenda. This is a separate project to the Development Services Agreement, which is what the 19.8 million loan is for.
Thank you, Ms Ampremo. Your final question, Councillor Howling?
I will be happy to send all of these questions because there's some legislative risk that I'll write to you separately about. Thank you, Acting Chief Executive Officer, for so ably handling those questions, and they only came to me late this afternoon.
Councillors, any further questions for the administration on this item? No. Next item, please, Ms Ampremo.
So item 10.3.1, draft amended local heritage survey advertising. This, at its meeting held on the 24th of March 2026, Council considered the outcome of the place-specific review for 5 places on the local heritage survey and requested the Chief Executive Officer prepare and present to Council an updated local heritage survey to reflect the outcome of the place-specific review, including the creation of new and modified place records where required. This report seeks approval to advertise the draft amended local heritage survey.
Thank you, Ms Ampremo. Councillors, before I get into the questions that we might have for the administration this evening, I do note that Councillor Russell has declared a financial proximity and impartiality interest. If anyone does have questions for the administration, I'll give Councillor Russell an opportunity to leave the chamber for the duration of the questions. But if no one's got any questions, there's no need for him to leave the room. So I'll begin by asking if anyone does have any questions on this item.
Yes, I do, thanks.
All right, I'll give Councillor Russell an opportunity to vacate the chamber. And for the benefit of the tape, Councillor Russell has just left the chamber. Councillor Howling.
Thank you. My question relates to the deputation which we've heard tonight for 49 Forest Street. There was an emphatic approach taken in respect of matters that have found itself into the survey's basis, or the basis for the survey, the heritage survey, suggesting that the property on the basis that Hobbs was the architect. Are we able to undertake some further research and run to ground the basis of the views that have been expressed that Hobbs was in fact the architect, so that we can properly consider some of those matters at next week's meeting? I don't need it to be done today.
Ms Shaw.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, we can. However, my understanding is that it wasn't Hobbs that actually was the specific architect on the building, rather the firm did the design for the building.
Thank you, Ms Shaw. Councillors, any further questions for the administration? Councillor Les?
Just following on from that question, thank you, Mr Mayor. Do we know that Hobbs wasn't the architect? I note that the deputy said that his name wasn't indicated on the plans, but I don't know if anyone else's names from the firm was indicated on the plan. So,
Ms Shaw?
So Hobbs, Forbes and Partners are on the design plans themselves, but not Hobbs specifically.
so we don't know whether he was or not. Yeah, thank you.
Another question?
Yes, I did have another question. I also noted in the deputation that it was suggested that Category 1 and 2 buildings should only be public buildings and not private buildings. Is there anything in the legislation or the regulations or the guidelines that limit Category 1 and 2 buildings to public buildings?
Ms Shaw?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. No, there isn't, and that refers to the heritage list only, and it's open to council to include any iteration of places it likes on its heritage list, noting that this item is for the local heritage survey that will inform the future list.
Thank you, Ms Shaw. Councillor Les?
And do we have other Category 1 or 2 buildings that are houses on the list at the moment?
Ms Shaw?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, my understanding is the only private residence is Blue Waters, which was a Category 3 in the local heritage survey, but council resolved to include it in the heritage list.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Shaw. Councillors, any further questions for the administration on this item? Councillor Raison.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you, I note that Mr Carmichael has spoken twice already in relation to this item, and I'd appreciate understanding if we do decide next week to have that property advertised, whether that's likely to create any extensive amount of work for the owners if that happens.
Ms Shaw?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So if the owner does not put in a submission, we'll assume that there are no comments on that. And so we'll present any submissions received, whether it be from the landowner or from other members of the public, back to council for council to consider including the place in the final version of the local heritage survey.
Thank you, Ms Shaw. Councillor Raison?
Thank you. So if I understand that correctly, when those submissions are made, Mr Carmichael would have an opportunity to speak in relation to any submissions in favour of it going on to the list. Is that correct?
Ms Shaw?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, he will have the opportunity to make a deputation when council is considering the local heritage survey following consultation. The heritage list is a separate statutory process and will be required to write to the landowner of the property, giving them a copy of the statement of significance and requesting or inviting them to make a submission. So there'll be a further opportunity should council consider that as part of advertising of the heritage list, as well as adoption of the heritage list.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Raison and Ms Shaw. Councillors, any further questions for the administration on this item? No. In that case, before we proceed to the next item, if someone could go and retrieve Councillor... Yes, thank you, Mr Lecoq. Welcome back, Councillor Russell, and thank you, Mr Lecoq. Next item, please, Ms Ampremo.
Item 10.3.2, proposed management order for Bush Forever Site 333. This report recommends that Council consider a request to assume ongoing responsibility for the management of a portion of Lot 5000 on Deposited Plan 70764 Waterford.
Thank you, Ms Ampremo. Councillors, any questions? Councillor D'Souza.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This recommendation at part 1 makes the accepting of the management order conditional on receiving an area assistance grant from the WAPC to complete the remediation works. Just wanting to ask whether the quantum of that grant is the same as the costing for the works, because I know later on in the report it mentions the works are 280k in the first year, I think 180k every year for 4 years, and then an extra 40k. Is that the amount of the area assistance grant?
Ms Catalini.
Thank you, through the chair. Yes, the city is applying for that whole amount to cover that funding over that period of time, as outlined in the report.
Thank you, Ms Catalini. Councillors, any further questions? Councillor D'Souza.
And this is purely sort of a clarifying and drafting issue. Would it be sort of prudent to include the amount of the grant in item 1, or is that not required?
Ms Catalini.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you for the clarification. Through the chair, they have been willing to support. We don't think it's necessary to put that amount because they have been willing to support the costs that are required because they're considerably more than initially thought. So that's why they're suggesting this process.
Thank you. Councillor D'Souza.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And just one further question. During the works on this item when it commences, will that affect residents' access to the walkway behind Clontarf? And if so, will residents be advised of that access?
Ms Ampremo.
It shouldn't impact the ability for public to still access the walkway, and if there is any requirement for any diversions to be put in place, then they can be managed during the time.
Thank you, Ms Ampremo. Any further questions, councillors? Councillor Howling.
Thank you. Has any assessment been undertaken as to the condition of the vegetation on the site, as well as any invasive species and plants and weeds that might need to be managed?
Who should I send that to, folks? Ms Catalini? Oh, Ms Ampremo.
So the site has been considered in terms of the amount of work that will be required to do, and that's where the cost estimates have come from to remediate the site. So that would deal with addressing any weed species on the site as well.
Any further questions, councillors? No. Oh, Councillor Lees.
Just a quick question. I note that this is this piece of land is now reserved for, it's a local scheme reserve for public open space. Would this lead to any change to that, likely change to that, or need for change to that reservation under the scheme?
Ms Shaw.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. No, it doesn't require any changes to local planning scheme number 7. The Bush Forever layer sits over on top of the local open space reserve.
Thank you.
Any further questions, councillors? No. Councillor Howling.
What's considered to be, apart from the management, which on the one hand DPLH should be undertaking of that particular area, what's the benefit to the city? The conclusion says that it's to proactive management of the river corridor with ongoing maintenance and management costs accommodated through existing operational programs and future external funding. But surely the DPLH have been undertaking the management of that land, so that in the circumstances where we are accepting the responsibility for it under a management order, aren't we just accepting the liability for it?
So the piece of land is surrounded by land that is currently managed by the city. When we talk about management of that site at the moment, there's very limited proactive management takes place. So what this agreement is proposing is that the city would get funding to remediate the land, to bring it back into better quality bushland, and then would manage it from that point forward because we are managing the adjoining land that is bushland. So we currently do activities on the adjoining land, such as weed control and fire management and that type of thing. So we would be looking at amalgamating this piece of land with funding for remediating it to higher quality bush with the adjoining pieces of land that we currently manage.
Thank you, Ms Ampremo. Councillor Lace?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just clarification on that point. The land is currently owned by the Indigenous Land and Sea Corporation. That seems to be what the report suggests. Is that correct?
Ms Catalini?
Sorry, yes, that's correct.
So if we then take over, is transferred to WAPC and then we take over the care, control and management, does that mean that the public would then have access where they might not now? Is that correct?
Ms Catalini?
Once it is with the WAPC, they would transfer to us as the reserve as a management order, so they can determine, what sort of space that is. But it'd be probably recreation and conservation would be the expectation. So in that regard, yes.
Any further questions, councillors? Councillor Raison?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Once the area of land is converted to reserve land, would it be possible to set up something like the Jerderup Bushland Reserve and have a community group participate in the management of the land once it's under the city's control? Or do you think it would just be the city being responsible for that?
Ms Ampremo, should I send that one your way?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. So it is possible, but if I can just maybe, for people that are not familiar with the site, currently there are no fenced boundaries around these parcels. So what we're dealing with is some property boundaries on a map, but when you go on site, the distinction between the area that the city currently manages and doesn't manage isn't necessarily obvious. So what this is seeking to do is take a parcel of land that's currently unmanaged, because the city and its contractors do know where those boundaries are and do things like weed control activities on the areas that's currently managed by the city, but that other block of land doesn't really have any active management, and that's fairly apparent when you look at the site. So what this is intending to do is what currently is fairly appears to the public as one section of land along the foreshore, is to actually make it, in terms of the management order, one section of land that would then be looked after by the city in terms of weed control. But there's no reason why we couldn't look at getting community groups involved in the whole parcel of land, potentially.
Thank you, Ms Ampremo. Any further questions, councillors? No. Next item, please, Ms Ampremo.
Item 10.3.3, proposed change of use group dwellings to unhosted short-term rental accommodation, Lot 1, number 27A, Pether Road, Manning. The purpose of this report is to consider an application for development approval for a change of use from a group dwelling to unhosted short-stay rental accommodation on Lot 1, number 27A, Pether Road, Manning. The item is referred to council as the proposed land use falls outside the delegation to officers. It proposes a non-residential A use within a residential zone, and objections have been received during advertising. For the reasons outlined in the report, it is recommended that the application be conditionally approved.
Thank you, Ms Ampremo. Councillor Sousa?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Pether Road in Manning is quite a unique road, given it's been recently funded by the city to be a safe, active street. So 30k speed limits, raised street sections. That being the case, is there any rationale to potentially tighten up some conditions of this application, or is that not a relevant consideration?
Ms Shaw?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So the city's recommended a condition to ensure compliance with the management plan that was provided by the applicant. Within that, there's a guest code of conduct that specifies that the one site that's located on the site must be used for the car parking, and that there's no permitted car parking outside of that bay. So whilst we do recognise that the application proposed up to 6 guests, and that only one bay is provided on site, the city's parking local law doesn't prohibit parking along that street anyway, but we would be able to ensure compliance with them parking within the bay on site as part of the code of conduct that they submitted and that condition.
Thank you, Ms Shaw. Councillors, any further questions on this item? Councillor Raison.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Another question for Director Shaw is, are we able to tell that in relation to the two objections whether they are adjacent to the property that's being, has the application?
Ms Shaw.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would need to take that on notice and check the schedule of submissions.
Any further questions, councillors? No. Next item, please, Ms Amprema.
Item 10.3.4, proposed change of use group dwelling to unhosted short-term rental accommodation, Lot 5, number 16 Saunders Street, Como. The purpose of this report is to consider an application for development approval for change of use from group dwelling to unhosted short-term rental accommodation at Lot 5, number 16 Saunders Street, Como. The item is referred to Council as the proposed land use falls outside the officer delegation. It's proposed a non-residential A use within the residential zone, and objections have been received during advertising. For the reasons outlined in the report, it is recommended that the application be conditionally approved.
Thank you, Ms Amprema. Councillors, any questions? No. Next item, please, Ms Amprema.
Item 10.3.5, proposed change of use multiple dwellings to unhosted short-term rental accommodation, Lot 22, number 22, 181 Mill Point Road, South Perth. The purpose of this report is to consider an application for development approval for change of use from a multiple dwelling to unhosted short-term rental accommodation on Lot 22, number 22, 181 Mill Point Road, South Perth. The item is referred to Council as the proposed land use falls outside the delegation to officers as it proposes a non-residential A uses within the residential zone, and an objection has been received during advertising. For the reasons outlined in the report, it is recommended that the application be approved subject to condition.
Thank you, Ms Amprema. Councillors, any questions on this item? No. Next item, please, Ms Amprema.
Item 10.3.6, proposed two group dwellings, Lot 23, number 72 Comer Street, Como. The purpose of this report is to consider an application for development approval for two group dwellings on Lot 23, number 72 Comer Street, Como. The item is referred to Council as the proposed development is an application which proposes tree damaging activities and to a regulated tree in accordance with 7.2c of the local planning policy 3.2 tree retention, i.e. where the redesign of the development to accommodate the regulated tree is unfeasible. For the reasons outlined in the report, it is recommended that the application be approved.
Thank you, Ms Amprema. Councillors, any questions on this item? Councillor Lees.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My question is in relation to the regulated trees. The tree retention local planning policy refers to a living tree with certain criteria around height and canopy width and trunk circumference. My mind, I'm not clear that what we're talking about on this site in terms of the oleander and the hibiscus are actually trees. I would have thought while they meet the canopy width, they have numerous stems or branches coming from the ground. They don't have a small number of what would look like trunks to me. But I'm certainly not an expert on this matter, but I just wonder whether there is a definition being used here, or whether it would be appropriate for the city to get some expert advice on the difference between a tree and a shrub?
Ms Shaw.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The definition that the city is using is the regulated tree as per the policy. When we do the assessment of these applications, first and foremost, we're identifying vegetation on the site that otherwise meets the criteria contained for a regulated tree. In this one in particular, when we went out on site, the oleander and the hibiscus were assessed as part of that site inspection based on the established size, structure and the presentation of the trees themselves, and the fact that they met the criteria contained within the policy. The city then applied the requirements of local planning policy 3.2. But there is otherwise no definition or distinction between a tree or a shrub as part of local planning policy 3.2. It's just that case-by-case assessment that we do on the site.
Thank you, Ms Shaw. Councillor Lees.
Thank you, and thank you, Director Shaw. I suppose my question is the policy and the definition of a regulated tree refers to a living tree that meets these criteria. And my concern is that these aren't trees, and I would think there would be a number of bushes or shrubs that would meet those canopy width requirements as well. So just because it meets the canopy width requirements doesn't mean it's a tree. And I don't want to take up valuable time of the administration or the applicant.
Councillor Lees, I do have to butt in. Questions have got to be concise and succinct.
Well, I suppose the question is then, could we get some advice from an arborist about the difference between a tree and a shrub?
Ms Shaw.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We can liaise with our parks team on that, but for example, a hibiscus, they can grow up to 10 metres high. They've got one single trunk stem as part of them, but some of them are woody shrubs. So it really depends on the vegetation itself, and that's why we do that on-site assessment against the criteria contained within the policy. But certainly if there was a large rose bush on the site, we wouldn't be considering it a tree.
Thank you, Ms Shaw. Councillors. Councillor Russell.
Yeah, thank you. Could the city please confirm that this DA is for 2 group dwellings and not 2 single dwellings? Because my understanding is that council is lawfully unable to make a determination on single dwellings per the P&D regs.
Ms Shaw.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, they are classed as 2 group dwellings as per the definition under the residential design codes, because, well, first and foremost, the application is on a single lot for now, but as part of the future subdivision application, they share a common property access way. So they're not considered to be prescribed single house development as if the 2 dwellings were on their own freehold lots.
Thank you, Ms Shaw. Councillor Russell.
I'm sorry, they share a common driveway, did you say? And a common crossover?
Thank you, Mr. I'll check the design itself, but I can confirm that they are definitely 2 group dwellings. I did check this.
Thank you, Ms Shaw. Councillors, any further questions on this item? No. Next item, please, Ms Ampremo.
Item 10.4.1, listing of payments March 2026. This report presents to Council the list of accounts paid under delegated authority between 1 March 2026 and 31 March 2026, and purchase card transactions between 1 February 2026 and 28 February 2026.
Thank you, Ms Ampremo. Councillors, any questions? Nope. Next item, please, Ms Ampremo.
Item 10.4.2, monthly financial statements, March 2026, to present Council the financial statements for March 2026.
Any questions, councillors? No. Next item, please, Ms Ampremo.
Item 10.5.1, minutes of the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee meeting held on 10th of March 2026. This report recommends Council receive the minutes of the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee meeting held on the 10th of March 2026.
Any questions, councillors? No? Next item, please, Ms Ampremo.
Item 10.5.2, Risk Management Quarterly Report. This report presents the recommendation from the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee in relation to strategic risk to Council for consideration.
Any questions, councillors? No. Okay. In that case, that brings us to item 12, which is motions of which previous notice has been given. That's nil for this evening. Item 15 is when we would close the meeting to the public if we need to. There is a confidential item 15.1.1. Does anyone wish to ask any questions in relation to that item? No? In that case, there's no need to close the meeting. We'll move straight to item 16, which is closure. So before I close tonight's meeting, I'd like to thank everyone for their attendance and participation. I close the meeting at 7 p.m. Thank you all and good night.